SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. It's time to audit your sales approach, because doing that regularly can help sharpen your skills and introduce new ways of going about the sales process. Ingrid Maynard is the founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. She has fresh eyes and a list of 4 essential practices that she says every business should embrace. It's a simple recipe, step 1 of which she describes to Jeff Waters.
The first one is planning for your sales meeting. So that's the first thing. I always say plan. And what I mean by that is have more outcome-driven conversations. And that means having a very clear and specific outcome to reach by the end of a conversation. A lot of salespeople think that planning is just about territory planning, maybe it's account planning, but they don't necessarily plan for the conversation that's going to progress that outcome faster. By having outcome-driven conversations, it does a couple of things. One, it crystallises your approach, and it's a very respectful way of engaging with a customer because it means that for both of you, it's the best use of your time. It still means you can have a fantastic conversation, but you also know what you're there to achieve. They know what you're there to achieve, so it takes uncertainty off the table. And by the end of it, you can then be your own best coach by going back over that plan and asking yourself a few questions. You know, did I achieve my outcome, yes or no? And if I did, how do I know that I did? What do I need to do to build on that? And what have I learned? And if I didn't, because sometimes you turn up to a customer meeting and you read the room and you think, hey, today's not the day. That doesn't mean you don't have that conversation. It just means you don't have it today. Or the conversation doesn't go the way that you thought that it might. And so when you end that conversation and you're asking yourself, did I achieve my outcome? No, I didn't. Where did it fall down? What do I need to do to fix it? What do I do now? What are my next steps? And what have I learned?
What sort of plan are we talking about here? Some sort of mud map or an actual script?
I've got a template that I recommend for people. So when I say plan, there's a few things. So the first part is background. So understanding the background or what's gone before with that particular customer or that conversation. Second one is the result that I'm driving. And that needs to be written in a way that's specific and measurable so that I can say, yes, I did achieve it or no, I didn't. Then there's objectives. And I'd say no more than 2 or 3 objectives that are kind of like they break down the result into little chunks. Then we look at the audience because like anything, you can have the same plan, let's just say, but you don't really, but let's just say you have the same plan, but you're talking to 2 very different people. The way that you execute that plan is going to be determined by who you're in front of. And that person might have a very different personality or business style to the other person. So you're going to conduct it in a different way. So it needs to be relevant to the person. Next part is what you want them to walk away with. And the final part of that plan is your how or your approach. And that's just bullet points that really answer your objectives. So there is a structure to it.
So what's the second thing I need to do?
Well, execution is the next part. So asking better questions. Go to the meeting with, it should be in your plan, but really well-worded, carefully constructed and well-thought-out questions. And I would say that fewer questions that elicit greater responses or greater outcomes are going to be better, that give you the insight that you need. If people ask questions, because telling isn't selling, if you ask better questions, not only are you doing less talking and hopefully more listening, which is great sales practice, but you're also directing the other person's thinking. So it's almost like you're facilitating a conversation rather than telling somebody or trying to present to them or trying to convince and persuade them. It's a much better method of engagement. So planning, execution with questions. The other part of execution too is knowing some influencing techniques. And that's the third part that I would say that people really need to develop.
Step 3.
Yeah, step 3 is use influencing techniques because...
What does that mean?
Well, influencing techniques, it sounds like, oh, God, persuasion tactics, but actually another way to look at influencing techniques is about getting your message heard and enabling somebody to take up an idea or even consider an idea in a way that's going to land. So there are 3 different types of challenges that salespeople generally face. There's a relationship challenge, there's a decision challenge, or there's an action challenge. The relationship challenge is tackled by the principles of liking and reciprocity. And the decision-making challenge, that's the one that salespeople really love because most salespeople are pretty good at the relationship part. But then it's about getting somebody to do something or to make a decision based on what you've presented them with, because that's the whole point of selling, is to get somebody to do something. But first they've got to decide. And we use authority and social proof to elicit a decision. And then the final one, which the challenge is around getting action taken. So when you've got somebody that's made a decision, sometimes they sound great. They might even say, yep, we're going to make this happen. And then you go into email land, voicemail land, and nothing happens, Jeff. And some salespeople can end up feeling like stalkers or feeling like they've read the room really wrong, when in actual fact, they haven't. The customer's overwhelmed. They're sitting on the fence. And in this current market, there's so much pressure to get a decision right because there's less available budget that they don't make any decision. And so when you need somebody to actually take action on something that they've decided to do because they're sitting on the fence, you need to use influencing techniques. So this would be, the first one is commitment and consistency, and the other one is scarcity. Now, scarcity we think of as, what retailers do all the time, which is, we're on sale, everything must go, last days. But actually it's about also talking about what somebody stands to lose if they don't decide on this and if they don't take action in a certain time frame. And it's also about the human behaviour of, if I make a small commitment in the right direction, I'm more likely to take subsequent action consistent with that first small commitment.
Beautifully put. So we're up to number 4, I believe.
Yeah, so the 4th one would be, after you've managed to get the sale, a lot of salespeople just move on and they don't go back and foster and deepen the relationship. One of the things that I would be encouraging anyone, particularly in B2B sales, is to have what I call the value delivered discussion. And that is where you go back after the solution's been implemented or after the product's been bought, and you start to unpack the value that the customers actually had delivered to them. And that is so that you can get a measure of that value. Now, the benefit of that is immense. Number one, it reinforces why somebody chose to go with you in the first place. And it reminds them of that value, because we make assumptions all the time that, well, surely they know, they've bought it, they're benefiting from the solution. But actually people forget. They just know that they've bought it and they forget the real benefit because they forget the problem that they had beforehand. But also when we get a measure of value, we can build stories, we can build case studies, we can build testimonials about that. And so when we're going to a future prospect, we can draw on those stories in a measurable way that's real for a prospect that says, actually that sounds really good. They've had a similar issue to us and this is what they were able to do as a result of working with you.
That's Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel.